Well, welcome to Wednesday Live, not live. We pre-recorded this due to the holiday season and because my special guest today is in from Mexico. So we have the great privilege of hearing from Filemon Lopez. I'll just give you a quick little intro. He is a model leader, a dedicated community partner. Filemon has worked for Comcast and its predecessor companies for over 30 years. He's moved from director of advertising sales to SVP for Comcast ad sales to the president of Comcast University, which is when he and I met many moons ago. He was instrumental in developing Comcast signature leadership programs and launched the Team Comcast and Comcast Live. Many of these bodies of work are still used for employee development and collection today. So after Comcast U, Filemon became the SVP of Florida East Coast region and then SVP of strategic operations before retiring in 2016. As the first Hispanic executive, he led the corporate's diversity efforts and in 2013, Hispanic Business Magazine recognized Filemon as one of the top 25 Hispanic business executives in the US. It's clear that local partnerships, community involvement, and volunteerism are near and dear to his heart. He is one of the most generous humans I've ever met. He frequently says things like the greatest gift you can give to someone is the gift of knowledge, encouragement, and hope. So, in addition to his many talents, Filemon is also an accomplished wildlife and travel photographer and enjoys traveling to many of the world's most beautiful locations, capturing images, and then he partners those images up with some inspirational quotes and he posts them. And it's just something I look forward to literally every day. So I'm personally grateful for Filemon because he took a chance on me 20 years ago and has been a mentor and friend ever since then. So I honor and celebrate you and a 20-year anniversary of our connection. Welcome, Filemon.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shannon. It's great to see you. Great to be with you. Great to talk about these things.
Oh my gosh, so great to share you and some of your wisdom with us today. So, 2020 was quite a year. It's not over yet.
I can
um,
understand.
but I thought, for someone who I've admired and learned so much from over the course of the last 20 years, I would really love to hear some of your reflections on this past year, like things you've learned, things you've experienced, setbacks and positives.
Sure. This year, taught me a lot of patience. It taught me that a lot of things are not within our control.
Yeah.
The fact that we were sort of forced to, change our lifestyle, stay in, wear protective gear. Um, but it also taught me resolve. You just can't give up on life and say, okay, I'm going to be a couch potato and sit and watch, the news or series on whatever streaming service you use. But you have to sort of decide that you're going to do something with that time, because all of a sudden you have more time than you had before, and that's also where creativity comes in. And for example, for me, I had 250,000 images that needed editing, needed a viewing, and so I've dedicated a lot of time to going through those images. And as you know, I put a quote to some of them, and then trying to figure out, okay, what do people want to hear during this time? What do people, what can I convey to them that that in fact will help them get through this pandemic, if you will.
Yeah.
uh, and so those are the things that 2020 has taught me, and has forced me to sort of focus on and do. And then the other thing I picked up quite a bit, and I've always loved to cook, but I'm cooking a lot. I mean, cooking is like so, you can be so creative, and,
Yes.
and the ingredients and the presentations and experimentation, and so
Yeah.
creativity has really spurned for me in 2020.
Yeah.
Now, what's helped me a lot in 2020 has been family and friends.
Mhm.
Oddly enough, I think I've connected more with family and friends because of technology.
Yeah.
And they're inside their houses, they're inside their apartments or whatever,
Uh-huh.
and they can't go anywhere. They have time. So, we FaceTime. I have a group of friends. There's 12 of us.
Uh-huh.
I used to get together every Thursday night in somebody's house, different house.
Okay.
And we continue to get together, but we do it via Zoom.
Oh my gosh, it's so fun.
And what's funny is each one of us has, a little drink, our little hors d'oeuvres,
Yeah.
and we just chat as though we were present.
Yeah. That's so much fun.
It
Oh
is,
my
it
gosh, you
is.
can still celebrate things together and share
Yeah.
stories and have laughs and, really connect on a personal level on what's challenging for each of you too.
I do miss the personal touch, the human touch. I think is very important,
Mhm.
and I find that very challenging in 2020 because outside of your core little group, which is in one hand really,
Right.
you can't hug, you can't kiss, you can't
Mhm.
uh, the fist bump and the elbow, and
Yeah.
it's just
The
not
arm
a thing.
around someone
I
to,
know.
yeah,
There's nothing better than an embrace,
I know.
particularly when you need, to feel loved.
Yeah.
So, but uh, but anyway, those are some of the things that 2020 has taught me.
That's incredible. So patience, which is something I think all of us, well, I'll speak for myself, something I could stand to do more of, and to use this as a chance to practice and to gain more patience, or to, practice what is the psychology of patience, or what are some things that I could do, like really your morning quotes, the picture themselves always make me think he was that close to that thing, whatever it was, if it's a human or a big animal or a sunrise, like just the images are so awesome. And then you find these most profound quotes that sometimes are funny. Very often they just kind of like I feel like a lump in my throat, because I just can connect. But like that is something that can enable me to be more patient, just to be really present with art, or with a message or a photograph. And then when you're also talking about creativity, I think that's such a helpful thing to remember, that in this time, something that we can develop more of is our creative sensibilities, whether that's in the kitchen, like you're saying, with cooking, how you connect with people, how you use some of your art and your talent, like you have with your images. That's just brilliant.
The thing I love about photography, you're capturing the moment, but you're sharing, you're sort of a storyteller, and then with the quote, you try to reach people. And I get feedback all the time. People reply to me and they say, "Oh, you have no idea how this has helped me today," or "How much I needed to hear this today," or
Yeah.
"This is exactly the direction that I wanted to, go in, but I didn't know." And then sometimes they'll call and say, or they'll send me a message and say, "Can you talk a little bit about this? I'd love to hear your thoughts. I have this situation." So I'll talk to them.
Sure.
But it tells me that, it's reaching people, it's touching people. And that was my intention. Because, to take beautiful photographs, just to take them,
Mhm.
it just doesn't make sense. To me, you capture a moment. Um,
Yeah, it's a generous thing. It's something that you give. So every time I teach the topic of vibe,
right.
the I and vibe are interests, and I have your picture on the screen when I get the chance to share a deck, and it's you with a big camera. And I talk about how you have this interest as a photographer, and that's not even what you do professionally. It was,
Right.
here, this is like a hobby,
Right.
but it just made you so much more interesting. It was like a component of Filemon Lopez that was so memorable and interesting. And I wanted to encourage people to invest more energy in their interests. Like, what do you think? inhibits people from investing more time and energy in their talents or their hobbies?
I think a lot of people have self-imposed limitations. These are, things that they don't believe they can do. Um, you may or may not know, but I was born legally blind. And through the years, I've had tons of surgeries in my eyes. My retinas had detached. I have lost the use of my left eye. You would never know it.
Mhm.
But, I still go on and take pictures. I don't let that limit me.
Mhm.
Thank God for autofocus, cameras, because there was no way I can focus anymore.
Yeah.
Um, but I think I could have said, I just can't do this. I'm not. I don't have
Yeah.
the ability to see as well.
Mhm.
And I don't want you to think I don't see at all. I mean, I can still drive with one eye,
Sure.
but um, but I think a lot of people have self-imposed limitations. I can't do that. I wouldn't do that.
Mhm.
Um, and I think particularly in 2020, there's been a lot of depression. There's been a lot of suicides. I think people need to realize that life can change in an instant, and you can, in fact, change with it.
Mm.
You have to adapt. You have to realize that you have many gifts, and that's when when I talk about the gift of knowledge, encouragement, and hope. I think those of us who can do this is provide people with with that
Mm.
knowledge that they can do anything they want to if they simply set their minds to it, and then provide that encouragement, and then that hope that they can in fact achieve whatever they want to achieve.
Yeah. Right.
So
They're without limitations and that self-imposed limitation. I think you're so right about that. I'm guilty of that as well. And it's so helpful to have friends in your life who can remind you of what you're capable of and give you that encouragement and stoke that hope so that you have, the willingness to try. Sometimes like people quit before they even try. So to
Mhm.
say, to be able to practice certain things, and like even if you don't have talent, I mean that's why hobbies are called hobbies and not jobs, is that you're doing it for fun, so you're messing around in the kitchen, you're practicing while you're cooking, or you're amateur photographer, or you're putting yourself out there, or maybe you're a dancer or
Right.
whatever. So I think it's just really encouraging to hear you say that. And so last night I watched The Octopus Teacher. I don't know if
Yeah, but I haven't.
it's the show
Um,
on Netflix.
yeah, no, I know. I just recently somebody shared that with me about this fellow that spent what, a year with an
Yes.
octopus or something,
Yes,
and
and
how
it
much?
reminded me of you, Philemon, because
Really?
that yes, because he's a photographer, and the footage is just phenomenal. So is he and another amazing photographer, because a lot of the imagery and video is of him. And so he was taking photos similar to like what I'm seeing in your backdrop there,
Right.
and he was admiring how these native people they were such a part of nature that they could find where their hunt was off
Hmm.
to just by looking at the
Oh,
sand
yeah.
and the grass. And so he got to have that same experience with the ocean and the octopus, and just like really every day becoming a part of it. So I bring that up to say, like, what are some things that you have experienced in nature that could inform us of our own reality or our own experience as a human? Because I think you are someone who like really zeroes in on the details, and you
Right.
kind of recognize your environment. So I'm just wondering, like, what are some of your experiences from being in nature that have informed you?
I think nature is an amazing teacher. I think the whole cycle and the circle of life as well that we see when I go out to photograph, wildlife. I study trying to figure out what is it that I'm going to photograph, what
Mhm.
behavior I want to photograph, because it's easy to make a picture like a postcard,
Yeah.
it's pretty, but it's harder when you want to see, for example, the birth of an impala,
Mhm.
which is an amazing thing to see. Not very many people see it.
Yeah.
um, I've been fortunate to spend enough time in the field that get to experience these things,
Yeah.
and the tenderness of the mother, and care, and the encouragement. The mother impala and nudging the little baby impala to, hey, you got legs, stand up,
Oh, yeah.
and do that.
Mhm.
um so you sort of learn so many things from that. The other piece is, um and not just animals, but plants and birds, for example. The fact that birds nest.
Yeah.
Who taught them that they had to go and find twigs and bring them to this tree, and
Yeah.
slowly but surely build this nice little house, so to
Yeah.
speak, for their mate. and
Mhm.
um, and it's just amazing that nature just does that, innately.
Yes.
They just do.
Yeah.
um, and then, of course, the reality of the predators versus the prey.
Mhm.
Every year, you probably heard of the migration in
Sure.
Africa, where thousands and thousands of wildebeest and zebras move about from the Serengeti to the Masai Mara in search of water, since everybody's searching water. And along with all those animals goes the lions and the cheetahs and the leopards, and because they gotta eat, they
Yeah.
gotta eat. So it's a thing of persistence to live.
Yeah.
And then you learn how each animal is different. For example, a leopard is very strong and can kill and carry the prey up a tree. A
Mhm.
cheetah is not very strong. A cheetah's fast.
Huh. Yeah.
That's his or her strength.
Yes.
But once she kills it, if another predator comes in, she lets him have it, because
Yeah.
she can't get hurt. She can't get hurt. If she gets hurt, she can't run, and
Yeah.
if she can't run, she can't eat. If she can't eat, she dies.
Yeah. And her
So
family.
yeah, so it's amazing to me. And then the lions. I still don't know why the lion is the king.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
I think I think the crown should go to the lioness.
Ah.
They're the ones that do the hunting. They're the ones that do all the laboring. They're the ones that feed. They're the ones that take care of the little ones. The
Mhm.
lion just sits around 22 hours, you know, eat one
Free.
hour, make another hour, and goes back to sleep. I mean, come on. Why would that?
They have value.
But I
Oh
tell
my
you,
gosh,
there's
that is classic. Oh my god.
nothing more amazing, more interesting than watching a group of lionesses on a hunt. There's like they communicate. I don't know how, but and it's just like a rhythmic. It's orchestrated, and to me, I think they're probably one of the smartest animals on the planet.
Absolutely. So fascinating to watch and just to see how they operate together. And when you're talking about that, the herd, going for the water for survival and that they're all kind of together going in a certain direction, that makes me think about the whole better together. Like something that we heard a lot this year was that we're stronger together, we're better together, that we are not alone. So I just wonder where you see some parallels between like how other species survive and how we survive.
Well, for example, in the migration, um, zebras and wildebeest. One of them can't see very well,
Mhm.
and the other one can hear better.
Mhm.
So, they kind of work together. Or it's like in New Mexico, I went to photograph sandhill cranes, and
Mhm.
there's thousands of snow geese. The snow geese is fat and squatty,
Yeah.
and the crane is tall, and slender.
Yeah.
And so, the cranes can spot a predator faster than the geese. So, they help each other because, the crane, the minute it sees a coyote or a mountain lion or whatever, makes a heck of a racket, and all of a sudden all the geese go up. Without the crane, the geese wouldn't survive.
Yeah.
And I think there's a codependence that we have as well, because without us, helping each other, encouraging each other, realizing that life is good, we can do anything we want to, we set
Mhm.
our minds to, having people give of their time, um, to kind of show us the way. I mean, without that, we just couldn't make it.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. And I think that's a great segue to generosity at work, like ways that you have witnessed and experienced generosity at work. What are some of the ways in which you've been able to witness that and participate in that in your own career?
Well, it's interesting talking about generosity at work. Unfortunately, I don't see it that often. It doesn't happen that often, or it happens in little pockets.
Mhm.
Um, but to me, I experienced it starting my career, for example. I needed to learn the business. I needed to um, you know to experiment, to grow, and someone generously gave of their time and their knowledge, and took a risk on me,
Yeah.
and said, hey, don't don't worry about it. If you make a mistake, it's okay, we can correct it.
Mhm.
um, and so, that happened to me starting out, and it doesn't happen very often. Sometimes people have very rigid lines and say, no, this is what you're going to do, and that's all you're going to do.
Mhm.
But I was given the opportunity to do that, and then the generosity came back too. When I had questions, they didn't care. I mean, just coming in and ask,
Yeah.
and that's how you grow. If you don't ask, you don't know. Or point me in the right direction. Tell me who to talk to, or what to read, where to go for information.
Yes.
Um, and
Yeah.
so I thought that was good.
Mhm.
Another experience on generosity I experienced in 2004. You were part of that. You were gracious enough to come to the hospital, but my son Joseph suffered a catastrophic stroke,
Mhm.
in
How old was he at the time? He was like
17.
17. I knew he was a teenager. Wow.
Yeah,
17 years old, suffered a stroke out of
and
nowhere, right? That was just
nowhere.
shocking.
And that was in Florida, and he was in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia.
Mhm.
And I didn't know what to do other than, okay, let me figure out where the best place to take him is. And I called my bosses at Comcast,
Mhm.
and I swear they dropped everything. They said, "Well, hang on, we're gonna help you. We're gonna, um, get your son to the right hospital with the right medical team."
Mhm.
And it was a snow day that day, so I flew from Florida to Philadelphia, and he and I got to the hospital at the same time. And they went in, and right at the hospital, It was, you know, Ralph Roberts, Brian Roberts, Dave Watson, Steve Burke. I mean, these were the Comcast leaders, and saying, you know, hey, whatever you need, here we are. You know, we can help you. We, you know, we'll do whatever. And some of them stay, and it got pretty emotional because at one point, because they didn't think he was going to make it, they said, you know, we should bring a priest. And I'm going, okay, bring a priest, but let's not give up yet.
Yeah.
Um, but what was important was the follow up. Because as you know, he made it, and he's an amazing person now, 34 years old. Can you imagine?
I can't.
Um,
Right. He's a PA.
yeah, he's a PA.
Dad.
He has masters in exercise science. He's got
Yeah.
2 degrees, one in psychology and one in criminal justice. I mean, it's an amazing recovery. It's a miracle, really.
It's a miracle. I
Yeah.
remember you had a picture of him in your office in Florida on a jet ski.
I did,
You're
because
like, that's Joseph.
I know. Yeah.
Right? What a what a like paradox to think, you know, here you had a stroke and you were calling in the priest, and now he's like at that point it was a young man liberated on a jet ski. Now he's got an amazing career, education, a beautiful wife, a child. You know, it's just truly a miracle story.
And to me, the generosity of the company to
Mm.
give me not just their commitment to assist me, but the time.
Yeah.
Because at the time, you know, I mean, I was dedicated, you know, for 3 straight months. I mean, literally, I barely slept. I
Mhm.
was dedicated to recuperating my son, and it was all an interesting thing, because even the hospital asked me to write a book about this, because it was all about positivity, you know. And I didn't allow anybody coming into the room saying anything negative, anything about stroke, anything, because, you know, even though he was in a coma for 2 weeks, I believed he could hear.
Mhm.
And in fact, he did. In fact, he told me later that he could hear. And
Wow.
so I didn't want any negativity. And it was all positive, positive, positive. He
Mhm.
broke the record for the most packages and the most notes in the hospital. Because, you know, I'm fortunate enough that I know a lot of people. Uh, Teams sent videos, ESPN, CNN, everybody sent, you know, encouraging words. And it was all built on that, built on that, built on that, built on that. And I kept telling him, Joe, we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this.
Mhm.
And but again, it was thanks to the generosity of the company that allowed me to put that time in and dedicate my time. And that's why, you know, I gave everything I had to that company,
Mhm.
to build and to grow and to make sure it was successful.
Sure.
You know,
For individuals who are listening and thinking about an employee of theirs or a colleague or, you know, family member who's struggling, particularly people who you're responsible to at work. So for leaders who have direct reports or colleagues who are struggling with some kind of a family loss or depression or something. I mean, I think it's really helpful in hindsight to say, what are things that people can do? So I just heard you say that generosity of time, the generosity of network, like if they had a contact at Penn or somewhere that they could help
right.
you with. So like, what are some things that you would say to leaders? Here are some things you could do.
I think, you know, then they need to they need empathy. They
Mhm.
need to understand that, um, you know, that people are going to go through difficult times, and they have to care. Um, in Unfortunately, so many leaders, and I know a few, that just don't care about the people. They see them as a commodity, and they come and go, and either you do your job or you get out of here. But I always looked at people as an investment, because first of all, I focused on selecting the right people. But then I said, okay, I've invested so much time, so much effort, so much money in their development, in their training, and in gaining their trust. Because that's the other piece,
Mm.
um, that I'm willing to be generous with this person, to use the word generous, and give them time, give them direction, give them assistance when I can, because eventually that will come back to me,
Mm.
tenfold.
Right.
Um, and believe me, the word gets around, and people say, that's the kind of company I want to work for.
Mhm.
That's the kind of leader I want to work with. But I think empathy is something that leaders should really have. Um, being willing to listen, to take a risk. Obviously, they have to know their people, because they don't want to be taken advantage of.
Mhm.
Um, and there's this, trust in the relationship, between the leader and the people being led.
Mhm.
Um, but I think those are the things that I would encourage leaders to have.
Mhm.
Um, as recently as last week, I was coaching somebody who's struggling, somebody that used to work for me that works someplace else, and this person has been very sick with heart problems,
Mm.
and her boss is a CEO of a company. Um, tells me didn't care, didn't I mean this is an exemplary employee, um, and and because she was sick so many days, she had surgery, she was out with the heart surgery,
Mhm.
and she couldn't go get his groceries. She couldn't, I mean, stuff that wasn't even related to work,
Mhm.
personal stuff. um, Said, unless you get better, and you just can't work here anymore. And I'm thinking, you gotta be kidding. First of
Wow.
all, you got a lawsuit in your in your hands. Excuse me. But I'm thinking, how could somebody in the right mind, and this is a CEO of a pretty large company, um, in Florida, in how could somebody do that to somebody
Mhm.
that's been there helping them and making them look good, and
Loyal employee,
yeah,
engaged,
the way employee.
talented. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So to me, I mean, I think you have to be willing to bend a bit,
Yeah.
um, and realize that there's value in what they bring to you.
Mhm.
Value in what they bring to
Yeah, and you have said that it's important to create cultures of generosity and environments where people feel loved and appreciated.
you. Yeah, I did a lot of. I worked so many years to understand, trying to understand people,
Mhm.
and finally the HR group in the company kept saying, because my employee feedback, my ratings were very high, the highest in the company. And this one head of VP of HR would come in and says, "What is it that you do?" He called it the secret sauce.
Uh-huh.
What's the secret sauce? And I said to him, I don't know what you're talking about. But then I started thinking really hard, and then he forced me to put it down on paper.
Mhm.
And I kind of broke it down into 4 quadrants. Uh,
This doesn't surprise me. I created a model
yeah,
and then a module to teach people how to do it, probably. So
exactly. And
good.
exactly that's what I did.
Yes.
That's what I did. That's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
The first quadrant, if I can go on with this,
Please.
the first quadrant is people want fair compensation and benefits. And I, as a an employee of a major company have very little control over that. The company is going to say, this is what that position pays, these are what the benefits are. So I have very little control over that. So I'm going to just work hard to lobby for good pay and benefits for my people.
Yeah.
And that the company is going to say. The second quadrant, and this is really key, is people want to have a sense of purpose.
Mm.
And that I can create. As a leader, my leadership team, any leader can create a sense of purpose. Why do we show up to work every single day? Why do I, as a secretary, why do I, as an installer, why do I, as a clerk, why do I show up every single day? What's the reason for my existence, our existence, give them a sense of purpose.
Mm.
Then people will work much harder because they feel like they're contributing to something.
Yeah, there's value, there's meaning.
There's value. We used to say, we work hard to connect people to what's important in their lives.
Yeah.
Through, video, through internet, through telephone, and what's more important than connecting people to what's important in their lives, connect with their loved ones, connect with people far away.
Mm-hmm.
So a sense of purpose. And then we will work with our people trying to help them figure out, how do you create a sense of purpose, create a vision, a mission. That way, you can that people can see that what they're working towards is worth working for. The third quadrant, it's a sense of belonging. People want to feel that they belong to something great, and we can create that.
Mm-hmm.
We can create that. Hey, we're going to be the best team. We are the best team. We're going to break records. You're going to be part of something wonderful.
Yeah.
And see what happens is people just want to be part of something.
Absolutely. Yes. And Cognizant and Microsoft ran a study on belonging at work, and they found so many great insights. One of which is that it is a performance measure. People who believe that they belong as is, that they're embraced and respected for who they are. And that's all the variety of diversity that each of us embody, that when they belong at work, their performance increases, similar to what you were saying before.
Absolutely. What happens when you have all these things working together, and I'll go to the final quadrant, employee engagement just goes through the roof.
Yeah.
Because they're being compensated fairly, they have a sense of purpose, they feel like they belong to something great. Mm-hmm. And then the last quadrant is they have a tremendous desire to learn and grow. Mm. And so as a leader, as a supervisor, you have to commit to your own growth and development so that you can teach your teams, because they want to know more, they want to learn more. Mm-hmm. And they want opportunities to use that knowledge and grow. Yes. And some of it is formal learning, some of it is informal learning. Mm-hmm. In my case, in my early years of my career, it was all informal, trial and error, and you figure it out, take the risk. But there's also formal, classes and seminars and workshops, etc. But people want to learn and grow, and yes. That's where for example, when I would hire an assistant, mm-hmm. One of the first things I would tell them, I said, you're going to be with me 2 years. And then they go, and then what? Yeah. Said, you're going to move on to another position. Mm-hmm. Don't know what it is yet. Yeah. But those 2 years, I'm going to expose you to all the different departments, and you're going to move on and,
Hmm.
and grow.
Yeah.
I want you to want to grow. I want you, and I'm going to prepare you. I'm going to, and all of them except one kind of got scared to death, and they all, moved on and have done great. I have assistants who have become vice presidents of companies. I've been fortunate enough to have worked with thousands of people that, I have senior executives at NBC, at Comcast, at other companies who started with me as, coordinators, and now they're EVPs of companies, you know, but it was through that commitment for learning and growing. Now they
Hmm.
took the ball and ran with it.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. So you have said that the greatest gift that you can give someone is the gift of knowledge, encouragement, and hope. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think that everybody, without exception, wants to do well in life. And I think what a lot of people, I don't want to say everyone, because it's not everyone, but a lot of people have no idea of how to get there from here, if you know what I mean. How to find a path
Hmm.
where they want to go. Um, and as a leader, as an individual who cares about people, who uh, would love to, help people find their path, not necessarily show them their path because they got to figure it out for themselves, but help them get there. It's about, sharing information, sharing what we call knowledge, and then encouraging them to take risks, in finding that path.
Hmm.
And along the way, because there's going to be setbacks, there's going to be ups and downs, you know, continue to give them hope. And there's so many wonderful stories of people who started with little in and have done amazingly well.
Hmm.
But I think what's important too is that people need to know and learn, um, that they have to create, they have to design their own life.
Hmm.
I call it live by design,
Hmm.
and make sure it's your design, because if it's not your design, it's going to be somebody else's design, and that may not be what you want.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's why when you were talking about the four quadrants of what the organization can do in that fourth quadrant about learning and development and growth and that commitment to the knowledge, you're calling it the gift of knowledge. And I think that's a two-way street, that the individual needs to seek that way to get to where they want to go or what they envision, and then they have to also be willing to accept that gift of encouragement, because you could believe in people sometimes more than they believe in themselves.
Right.
And that gift of hope and that optimism around, this is possible. How can I become this vision that I have for myself and my career?
It's interesting. You just said something that people have told me repeatedly, and that is, you helped me do things that I didn't think I could do.
Hmm.
I believed in you believed in me more than I believe in myself, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I
Uh,
do.
and so, to me, again, I go back to you know teaching people the value, for example, of goal setting.
Yes.
Most people don't set goals at all, so they go through life trying to figure out, okay, how did I get here and why did I get here?
Hmm.
And I've done exercises with people on goal setting where I said, write 10 things down, put them away, don't look at them again, and look at them in a year. and see how many of them you accomplished just by writing them down.
Yes.
And a year later, they said, gee, I accomplished 8 or 9 of them, you know.
Right. And they just had the thought and they wrote it down. They didn't share it with anyone.
They didn't share it with anyone. Now imagine if you do a whole goal setting where you set the goal, you look at the goal, you visualize the goal, you share with people, your chances grow exponentially,
Yes.
you know.
Yes. And what do you think? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, what do you think is in it for you? Like you do that. I've seen you do that countless times,
Right.
where you want to get everybody to their highest potential. Like a bridge between our tagline is connecting potential to performance. Because I really believe that everybody's got this untapped potential. So like, let's see it. Let's activate that. You're the same way. Like, what do you think that is in you that is so compelled to like bring out the best in people?
You know, I often ask myself the same question, but to me, it's so gratifying it's like watching a flower, you know, blossom, or a caterpillar just become a butterfly. And I have many examples. And if you search enough on LinkedIn, you find people who, and I didn't pay them, say nice things about me. But anyway, how they describe it, to me, that gives me a great sense of satisfaction. And I probably got that from my mother, because my mother was an amazing woman who always gave, who always was kind, who always helped people. And so to me is that satisfaction. But the other piece, and this is sort of what I ask of the people that I made a difference in their lives, is, you know, pay it forward. You know, don't just let it stop with you.
Mhm.
You know, you saw what you did, what we worked on, how we did it. You know, do it with other people, because at the end of the day, you know, and this is part of my mission, and my mission statement is, I want to leave this world a better place. You know, I want to make a difference in the lives of others. I want to share this life of adventure and passion, you know, with others. And to me, just as I watch their expression, as I watch their enthusiasm, as I, you know, it's amazing, and it just gives me satisfaction. You know.
Yes. Oh, I know. I think that's great. And to hear that it's a part of your mother that lives on in you, which I deeply believe, like even when we lose our loved ones, that we've had the fortune of getting some experience from them. And in some cases it's not positive experience, but it has helped us to learn something or strengthen something in
Right.
ourselves. But in her case, like her positive modeling of just always being generous, always finding ways to contribute, like when you do that, it benefits the individuals who you support, and also like honors her, and it gives you that sense of being purposeful and mission oriented. And I know that you don't give to get, Philemon. I know that personally from being the receiver of your generosity. Well, what would you say are some of the returns on generosity, right? I mean, we called the podcast that for a reason, because I
Yeah.
think it's important to recognize the bottom line benefits.
Well, in terms of business, when you are generous in the sense that we've spoken about, you know, with your time, with the knowledge, with encouragement, with the hope, with the learning, with all this, you create a culture of people who are more engaged, who are deeply committed to help you accomplish the goals of your business, of your organization. And in the end, you know, that culture of generosity says, you know, here we are, delivering on the promise to the customers, on the promise to the company, and on the promise to the shareholders. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. I lived through 5 hurricanes when I was in Florida. And one of them, Wilma, was devastating. 98% of the marketplace lost power. My little neighborhood was part of the 2% that didn't lose power. So I ran my office from my house.
Yeah.
My entire team would come every day. But we were trying to figure out, okay, independent of the business, let's focus on the people. There was no power, there was no gas, there was no food, there was no. So we began calling on the company and organizations outside the state, and all of a sudden we had gas coming in. We had set up tents in the various offices to provide meals for our employees. Any employee could come in with their families, by the way,
Yeah.
and we were cooking, and we had hamburgers and hot dogs and food, and then they needed a place to wash their clothes, and we found out that there were these trailers that I guess Tide, the sub company had, and we rented them, and they come in, and literally it's like a laundromat on wheels, and it was just, and it was every day, making sure that people were fed, making sure that people. And I got to tell you, when we were getting ready to open, and this really shocked me, I had over 2,000 people in one location outside waiting for the doors to open, and saying we're ready to come back to work and get back to business. I mean, to me, that speaks volumes. The return on that. Imagine if we didn't care. We said, "Hey, you guys fend for yourselves.
Yeah. Figure it out.
Figure it out." You know,
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't be coming back. They wouldn't be committed. They wouldn't, And it was tough because we lost, first of all, millions of dollars in terms of the the we call it plant, the cables and the platform.
Oh my gosh, I can only imagine.
A lot of people without service, and a lot of angry people, and that people had to put up with it.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? They knew the company was behind them. They knew the company had been generous enough to feed their families,
Yeah.
provide material, even tarps, for the roofs.
There was
Uh,
that sense of belonging too. Like it's a place where they belong in all aspects of their life, not just where they belong to do their work and their technical skill, but where they belong as a human and where they could get their needs met. So just in closing, Philemon, that's such a beautiful story. And thank you for sharing that with us, because it helps us to recognize that even in a crisis like we're in now, it's an opportunity when we use innovation, creativity, empathy, love, resources, that you can actually create something so awesome that becomes the reason why people want to stay, even if
right.
you thought here this could be the worst of times.
Exactly. Exactly. And not just stay, but really make a difference.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So in closing, a quote that you love is, "What is success?" It's a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote.
Yeah, I love it. If I may read it, it says, "To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded." So to me, and I tie that to my mission, you know, and I think that's why I'm here on earth.
Ah, thank you for being you, for sharing this awesome message, for the way that you believed in me. You modeled exactly what you spoke about today with me 20 years ago. And I give you thanks every day, Filemon, because that caring and that belief in others is something that I promised you I would pay forward, and I do. And
Yeah.
I just think that's, we're doing our part in trying to make the world the place that we're proud of. Yes. So, oh, you froze.
And the people you touch. So continued success. Best to you.
Yes. And to you.
Okay. Take care, my friend.
Well, thank you. You too.